So, Dave, welcome, man. Thank you so much for chatting with me and coming on here and sharing your experience of what it's been like working together. I really appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. I'm glad I can offer some advice and helpful hints to anybody who sees this and talk. I love talking to you, so this is going to be a fun time.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And we were just saying, like, before we hit record, that you're looking shredded right now. You just finished a
Yep.
workout, and it's perfect timing to do the Zoom call. So, again, I appreciate it. And what I want to do is just share a little bit about what it's been like working together, because I think a lot of the progress you've made and what you've done has been not only really impressive and really good, but I think a lot of people could pick things up from it, learn some ideas from it,
Yeah.
and use it as inspiration as well. And I was looking back in your training app where all your data's collected,
Mhm.
and you started in May of 2022 working together in our
Yep.
Modern Man program. So it's been a little bit over 2 years, which is awesome. Maybe you could just, if you can remember back to, around that point, where were you with your fitness at that point, before we started working together, or before we kind of knew each other?
So where I originally started was, I had some knowledge of what to do in the gym, but I wasn't so sure of how to pair that with solid nutrition. So I was in a place where I was almost battling my eating and battling with the back and forth with the gym. So I would put a lot of effort in the gym, but because my nutrition wasn't on par, the results weren't really showing. And, it really didn't dawn on me until we started working together how important nutrition really is. And it's like almost 80% of your growth, whether you're looking to gain or to cut, it's all nutrition. And you can't outrun a bad diet. And that's what I was doing before we started. And you were able to really just kick my butt into high gear. And you pointed out how important nutrition really is.
Yeah, you're right, man. I think a lot of people can probably resonate with that, because I've noticed over the years working with different people that it often comes in waves, right? Like it's almost like a puzzle that comes over time. You're not generally going to start doing everything right immediately from the start of, like, you're not going to be following the right workout program, eating well, eating healthy, tracking your macro. Like, it's not all going to come together all at the same time typically.
Yep.
And once you sort of piece a few of the puzzle pieces together and include them on top of each other, that's when things often really get momentum going, right?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would want people to know is that a lot of this is about trial and error and finding out what works for you. I mean, sometimes a workout may not hit as good as another workout. And sometimes eating certain foods might not be as beneficial as you think they are, and you might have to just switch up your diet. So over the course of the 2 years, we started out in a place that I was very happy with, but now I'm in a place that I'm even more happy because I've learned and grown along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think that's something that people often don't realize as well, that as the years go on, you should be happier and happier
Right.
with how you're looking and feeling, right? Like, of course, we're all getting older each year that goes by, but if you're doing the right things and you're building momentum and building the habits that are going to serve you long term, like, realistically, you should be in a better and better spot and feel good about things. But I unfortunately, I think most people are kind of going for the quick fixes and then starting over in the new
Right.
year, going for the quick fixes, and then it's almost like this loop of they're starting over every new year.
Yep. And before I started working with you, I was very much part of that yo-yo dieting and starting and stopping and starting and stopping. And,
Mhm.
it really does mean that you have to build healthy habits. That's what it's all about. And, you're not doing everything in the gym or in the kitchen for today. It's really for tomorrow. So you have to think, what do you want your next year to be like? Or you don't even have to think that far ahead. You can just say, what do I want my next month to be like? And, in that short period of time, you can really accomplish a lot if you just stay focused and have good habits.
For sure. And do you recall what, when you first came on board 2 years ago, what your main goals were at the time? I believe we did like a fat loss phase of some sort to begin. So I think if I'm remembering correctly, you did want to lose some body fat, but I'm trying to see if you remember anything about that.
When I first started, I don't think that I had a good grasp on what my goals were. I think we did start with a combination of body recomp, fat loss, and trying to grow a little muscle because, as a new client, you needed to feel me out and I needed to feel out the program. So yeah, it took a while before I developed and knew how to approach certain goals.
Yeah.
So when we first started, it was a bit of everything, but it all came together as we started entering new phases. And then I worked on building muscle and then losing fat and then building muscle again and now losing fat again. So, it's been a great run so far. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been amazing, man. You've been super easy to make my job super easy, doing everything I ask you to do. And, it is interesting because often when a new person comes on board, and I see this not every time, but probably 75 or 80% of the time, you're right in what you said in that often they're improving their body composition, even if like their main goal is to lose weight, all right? Like a lot of guys come on board, they just have a lot of weight to lose. Some guys are the opposite. They just want to gain a bunch of muscle. But often what I find happens is they end up losing a little bit of body fat or a bit of body fat and building some muscle as well. Because most of the guys who reach out are wanting to learn how to do strength training properly and are wanting to learn how to track their food properly, one or both of those things. So when they start doing those things, ultimately they end up building a little bit of muscle that maybe they expected or didn't expect, and also losing fat. So they come at it from both sides, and I think you did the same exact thing.
This current phase that I'm in, I've been able to increase my muscle mass and still lose body fat at the same time. And, I'm right where I want to be. It's like I've got the definition that I want for the summer months and I can carry this through the winter if I want. Yeah. And I'm still getting stronger.
Yeah. And I have that jotted down here as a note that I do want to talk about as well, because that's something that very few people are able to do just because they don't know the approach to take to do it, right? As far as what you said, losing weight, getting leaner, but also getting stronger and building muscle, like that's something that's like very, very impressive and advanced, that if you can do that, that's like the golden ticket, right? To lose weight and like...
That's where you want to be.
Yeah, exactly. But, one last thing about kind of early on, before we kind of talk about your current phase, do you recall what appealed to you that made you decide to reach out and ultimately work together? Because I do remember that you had a coach previously when you reached out, and I'm trying to remember what you said was the reason. You could have done 50 other things.
No, I think the primary reasons was I love the fact that you were local to the same state that I was in and working in the same time zone, whereas my previous coach was in California, so it made timing a little bit difficult. But I saw in the Modern Man group how engaged you were and how you reached out to people, you answered questions, and you put a lot of personal time and effort into your group and into each person. And you could tell that from the conversation history. So when I saw that, I kind of said to myself, okay, this seems like a guy who is not just dedicated to his job, but he's dedicated to helping others. And that's the experience that I've had, is that you really do care about how your customers are progressing or not progressing. And if we're not, I know you do tend to come down a little hard, like you should, and try to kick people's butts into high gear. So I really love that about your program.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And I'm glad it comes off that way, because the truth is you don't really get into doing this unless you really enjoy it. Or I shouldn't say that, but you don't stay in this profession for more than 8 years, 9, 10 years, if you don't really enjoy it and really want to see others improve. And gosh, that would suck if like, I just didn't care. Like you guys saw results or didn't see results. It doesn't matter. But I vaguely remember you saying that was like, we're obviously not going to name names, but the past coach that you used, that he was like he got into like other things and he was sort of neglecting
Right.
you guys a little bit.
Right. He was much more into promoting his Instagram image and his Facebook image and caring. It seemed like he cared less about the people and more about this whole influencer mentality.
Okay.
And that's just the wrong approach. I mean, you need somebody who, yes, has an online presence, but you don't want that to dominate the training. And, you know, you had a bit of both, but you can clearly see that you were fully invested as a trainer, not as an influencer. Because influencers, you know, they're a dime a dozen and they come and go. But personal trainers like yourself, this is a long haul. I mean, you want to do things into the future. And the last thing that I really loved about your program was that you could see that you worked with people from all age ranges. So you had some guys in their 20s, and then you had some guys in their 40s and 50s. And maybe even older, I'm not sure, but, you know, I fell into that older range. And as, you know, I'm 46 now, and I think I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. And people do not believe my age in the gym. They're like, oh, maybe you're like late 30s or whatnot. And I'm like, no. And I'm proud of that now, you know?
Yeah,
I know a lot of my friends that I graduated college and high school with, they're nowhere near in the shape that I'm in. They don't even know where to start. And, you know, I try to tell them things to do, but you just got to do it for yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You're 100% right. Like, you're looking the best that at least I've seen you look. And, you know, it'd be interesting because when I got a DEXA scan a few months ago, it said like what your biological age was, like, you know, how basically in shape you were and what age they would expect your body to be. It'd be interesting to see, you know, when you get one at some point, what it says. It'll probably say like low 30s or something.
Maybe. I hope that's what it says. It better not say that I'm actually my age.
Right.
No, but
exactly.
I know you got the DEXA scan, and my goal is to, at the end of this fat loss phase, whenever that may be, it might be sometime in August or September, that's when I want to get the DEXA scan, because I want to have as much time in this phase as possible.
Yeah,
I'm still looking to even improve now my body composition. So if I could take it another 6 to 8 weeks and then do a scan, that would be like the perfect time to do it, because I want to know when I go into my next fat loss phase sometime next year, what can I now improve? I've got my baseline. Let's work on improving.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
And I do think getting a DEXA scan, because, you know, for anyone who's not familiar, it's essentially the most accurate way to track your body fat percentage or get your body fat percentage measured, along with a bunch of other metrics that's available to like the everyday person, right? So typically you have to go to a university or some sort of facility, like scientific facility or medical facility, where they kind of administer it on you, and it takes 15 minutes or something like that, and it usually costs some money, 150 or 200 bucks. And you know, I know people who do that in between every phase that they do, right? After every fat loss phase or muscle building phase, just to see like, how much fat did I lose? Did I lose muscle? Did I gain muscle? So that's always, you know, something that is good to do, or at least if you're interested in monitoring those things every 6 to 12 months.
I should have gotten one before we started this current phase, just so that I could see how much it changed.
Yeah.
But now that I'm going to start with one this year, I think it's going to be a yearly thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it, you know, year by year. And, you know, I'm also realizing that like some people probably don't quite understand what we mean by like a fat loss phase or a muscle building phase. And I think that's because like there's a lot of people who like the thought of doing anything other than just trying to lose weight, like it hasn't come across their radar yet, right? But ultimately that's the position you want to be in, where you're not indefinitely trying to lose weight. Eventually, you know, no matter if you're watching this, if you want to lose 30 pounds, 50 pounds, 100 pounds, you'd lose that weight and get to your goal weight and get to a level of leanness that you're happy with. And then you'd be able to focus on other things. You'd be able to focus on building some muscle, improving your body composition, doing some of these other things we're talking about. And only losing and only going back to a fat loss phase, like if you really want to.
That's right.
You know, not because you need to.
That's right.
And It's interesting. I was thinking about this, who I was telling this to, but it's kind of like me and you. What we've been typically doing is we do like one fat loss phase a year for summer because we want to look a little bit more defined, a little bit more shredded during the summertime.
Yep,
But it's like each fat loss phase we do, because our body composition's better, there's less and less weight that we need to lose.
that's right. Yeah. And as you do those different phases, you learn how to dial your nutrition in better. And, for anybody who's watching, nutrition is the biggest key component to no matter what phase you're in. If you want to
Yep.
put a little weight on because you're on the thinner side, or if you want to take weight off because you're on the heavier side, it's all nutrition. And you
Yep.
don't have to go crazy doing running or jogging or Stairmaster or sweating yourself to death in the heat. None of that matters. It's just dial in that nutrition and your body's just going to work it out and it's going to happen. Just stay committed to it.
For sure, for sure. And I think, speaking of like how we get better at these things the more we do it, right? Like the fat loss phase you're doing now, I think you've lost about 13 pounds so far, give or take, right? Depending on the day.
Yeah.
13 pounds. I think last year you lost like 18 or 19 or something like that. So it's a perfect example of like, you just had less fat to lose because you're looking better now.
That's right.
Than you were last year. And, this phase also, obviously, we talked about you've been getting stronger during the phase as well, which is like really hard to do. And also it seems like relatively easy for you. Like it requires discipline, but it's like, it seems like pretty straightforward, pretty easy for you. So like, what do you feel like you're doing in your program right now or this time around that it has been the most helpful in doing that?
Well, I think one of the things that's most helpful is learning what food to eat, because those not only help you lose weight, but they give you the energy to perform in the gym. So this phase around, I learned the importance of incorporating a lot of vegetables into all of your meals. And, you just don't have to starve yourself. You don't have to, completely cut out the carbs. Carbs are actually really important because they give you the energy that you need. And I didn't really have that dialed in the first time I did a fat loss phase, but now most of my carbs come from vegetables, and I still incorporate bread, and I still enjoy my coffee with creamer, and those all count as carbs. But now I know to incorporate a solid amount, like 150 grams of vegetables in each meal, which gives you a full dinner plate size of food at every meal. And it keeps you full all day, until your next meal. Because if you're having small meals and you find yourself hungry throughout the day, that's when your mind is going to tell you to go, okay, go snack, go have some. And maybe I had a little bit more of that at the last fat loss phase, but I have none of it now.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that you've done differently this phase compared to the one last year that's made it even better and probably contributed to feeling better as far as you're having better workouts, you're still getting stronger. And that's because you're just eating more vegetables and you've got more volume, right? Like the alternative, like instead of using a lot of your carbs towards vegetables and fruit and stuff like that, if you're putting it towards more processed stuff, like you said, like, maybe the bread or maybe, I don't know, cereal or some other like, less nutritious, maybe higher calorie carb options. Ultimately, you're eating like less volume and less food, and you're going to have better workouts if you had 2 or 3 servings of vegetables that day or the previous day, and there's just more, more nutrients in your system.
So the first fat loss phase, I relied a little bit too much on things that sound good, but they're not. So protein bars, it's a wonderful name, but it's like a marketing gimmick because the bar is small and it's not going to keep you full like a real meal would. Yeah. So instead of relying on small things like cereal, like a protein cereal or a protein bar, or maybe just a small half a sandwich, I ditched all that and I went with a lot of high protein options, mostly chicken because it's versatile. You can do anything you want with it. And then vegetables. And that just works. If you can have breakfast like I do at 7 o'clock in the morning and not be hungry until 12:30, 1 o'clock, that's the right way to do it. And I'm eating the right balanced foods finally.
I think that's key, right? Is like if you're hungry all the time in a fat loss phase, it's just going to be way harder for you than it is for someone who's giving themselves more filling foods. It's like
you're just going to fail if you're hungry throughout the day. That tells me that your nutrition is off.
Yeah.
Right? And even though I'm in a fat loss phase and I'm still eating only like 1,700 calories a day, I'm not even hungry because my main meals that are all like 400 to 500 calories each are still full plate size meals. You know, two huge chicken breasts and a ton of vegetables with some cheese and some bread. And if I'm not hungry, then there's no need to snack.
Yeah, that's so true that you can make 1,800 calories feel like a decent amount of food, just like you can make 2,400 calories feel like nothing, right? And you know what you said before about like the protein bars, like it really is very true. Like there's these processed foods that maybe people see as healthy or good options, and you know, maybe they're not bad options, but there's a difference between eating to stay full and just eating something that's not shit. You know, it's like, and I literally just did this before. Like I've got the Transparent Labs protein bars, and I love Transparent Labs. As you know, I use their protein powder, but their protein bars, first of all, they taste amazing. And they're very few ingredients. They're like under 10 ingredients, which by the way, for a protein bar is like, most protein bars have like 50 ingredients. So they're healthier and good in that regard, but they have 16 grams of fat. And I had one before, and I'm also in a fat loss phase, right? So I was literally thinking as I'm eating this, like, dude, I could have had a 3 or 4 egg omelet with spinach and onions and peppers and low-fat cheese, and had a massive heaping plate of food for the same as this. Like the bar is this big.
So those protein bars, I think that they're really good to pair with something else if you're not able to really get a good source of protein from one meal, but to rely on them, that's where people go wrong. And you know, it's just something that you have to get in the mindset of making a full meal and not relying on it. And 16 grams of fat, I only have 40 grams of fat for the whole day. To have a successful fat loss phase, you really have to be mindful of those grams of fat and those grams of carbs. You know, protein doesn't matter if it goes a little higher, but if you're doing 16 grams of fat off of one bar, I'm telling you right now, your whole day is just shot. It'll be so much harder for you to only have maybe 24 other grams of fat, especially if those are the types of things that you're eating. But like you said, huge omelet loaded with vegetables isn't even going to get you to like 6 grams of fat, you know?
Yeah.
And
with egg whites at least.
Egg whites at least, right. If it's whole eggs, it's a little different. But I specifically stick with egg whites because I want to cut back a little bit on the fat. And I also don't want the cholesterol either.
Yeah, you know, I think that the average person who isn't tracking their food isn't as hyper aware of these things, right? Like I can have a 16 gram of fat bar and finish my day with a reasonable amount of fat and very predictably lose weight just like you can, right? Yep. But the average person doesn't understand that this bar, let's say, you know, average guy, maybe you should aim for 60 grams of fat, right? That's a normal amount. That's like a good fraction, 20% or more of your fat for the day. And the average person is not going to realize that. And then they're going to go have the, you know, it's a Sunday, right? They're going to go have a couple slices of pizza with their friends, or they're going to have that 4 egg omelet later, not realizing like, it probably should have just been in place of that. Right now you're at 50 grams of fat for the day, even though there's nothing wrong with eggs. Like to pair it with another high fat food or snack, you're putting yourself into, you know, a little bit of a tough situation. And then for dinner, maybe they have, you know, ground beef and, you know, they feel like they're doing a good job, but they didn't realize it's 80% ground beef. So there's actually 45 grams of fat in that meal right there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, being part of your program, I learned how important it is to vigorously track everything that you eat. And it might sound like it's a daunting task, but once you get used to it, I mean, the things that you eat regularly appear at the top of your list. So you can just hit the check mark and you throw it on a simple scale, and it takes all less than a minute to do. So there's really no effort. But like you said, you can blow through 100 grams or more of fat easily, like it's nothing. I was looking at some of my friends really enjoy the frappuccinos from Dunkin' Donuts, or any one of those coffee houses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of those drinks has 900 calories and like 50 grams of fat. That's one drink, and that's more fat than I've had all day. So you really
and it's a
think
drink.
that it really doesn't matter, but liquids matter.
And it's a drink. It's not even one of your meals. You gotta then eat food that day.
You still have to eat. So I mean, people who don't track don't realize that you can consume even up to 200 grams of just fat, thinking you're doing okay, but you're really not. And that's why it's so important to do.
Yeah, and man, like, obviously, we use tracking our food as a tool and a vehicle to see the results we want with our fitness. There's some guys in the program that they don't track their food for whatever reason, right? I coach them to do something else, but it's the type of thing that, like, you may not do it forever, but the time that you do it, it's going to serve you and give you knowledge and skills and knowledge around the foods that you're eating that will stick with you forever. So you'll be able to go then eat intuitively. Say there's a phase you're in that you don't want to track your food and you're eating more intuitively. You can actually do that way better than anybody else who's never tracked their food before, because you've weighed out peanut butter on a food scale once or twice before, or you can look on your plate and kind of know about how much chicken that is, if that's 6 ounces, 8 ounces, 2 ounces. These are things that, even if you're doing it for a temporary period of time, you're going to be able to stay in better shape for the rest of your life because you know this stuff.
Right. But I would say to anybody watching, eyeballing it instead of weighing it isn't going to work. I mean, you need to track it. And your return on investment from tracking food is 200%. It's all of it. It's right there. A simple food scale and a simple app, and stick to it and be honest with yourself, and you are 99% ahead of everybody else. Yeah.
And the two biggest knocks on, or the one knock on tracking your food, people think it takes a lot of time. It really doesn't. Like you said, it takes under a minute each time you eat. So at the end of the day, I mean, I could show you my screen time. I've made several posts about this. 3 minutes a day, 4 minutes a day is my average. Like, imagine if I was marketing on social media and I said, hey, you can do this one thing. It only takes 4 minutes a day, and it's going to have the biggest impact on you getting shredded and building the best body that you are genetically capable of. And it's only 4 minutes a day. Everyone would raise their hand and sign up for that.
That's right.
That's what tracking your food is.
That's all it is. I even spend, honestly, 3 minutes is probably the maximum amount, because I plan my meals ahead of time and I tend to eat things in repeat. They're right there at the top of the app. So all you have to do is hit the food, type in the new number, and you're done. So we're talking 5 or 6 seconds for each thing that you eat. I mean, it's time well spent. Actually, it's hardly any time spent.
Yeah. Agreed, man. Yeah. And, one thing I did want to share as well is a little bit about your training too. So we've dove into nutrition a bit. Obviously, you're tracking your macros, we're eating relatively aggressively right now. Like you said, around 1,800 calories to accelerate fat loss. We're towards the end of your phase now, so you won't be eating that for too much longer, right? But as far as training goes, you train 3 times a week at the gym, right? Maybe dive into a little bit about kind of what that's like, the strength training side of it. And, is there any cardio that you do as well?
So I do go to the gym 3 days a week because I do work from home. So there are only certain times that I can get to the gym, but I make the most out of going to the gym. I'm usually there to do like a 2-hour exercise. And it sounds like a lot, but it's a minute and a half in between each set. So it's not that much volume of a workout. And I think what helped me so much this time gain more muscle mass is doing a progressive overload on each exercise. So if I'm hitting 12 or 14 reps with a particular weight, I always move it up to the next increment, and I try to do around 8 to 12 reps instead. And you got to be vigilant, and you got to track your exercises just like everything else. But I don't do crazy cardio. I do steady state cardio, which is just light walking. I'm not walking up a tremendous incline. I'm not walking for hours. There's no jogging. There's no Stairmaster. There's no running. And the weight and the fat comes off just through diet. And all you have to do is just go to the gym and put in some exercise to burn some calories, but let your body burn the calories naturally through your nutrition. That's the way it works. And just by doing that, but I think progressive overload is the key. If you can work out with one weight and it's a little too easy, you have to force yourself to go slightly higher. But those reps have to count. So it's form over function.
Yeah, essentially what you're saying, I guess, is that you've got to push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit with how much you're lifting, I suppose, right? Because, you mentioning the rep ranges, if you can get, if you're aiming for 10 to 12 reps and you can consistently get 12 with the weight you're using, it's a good indication it's time to move up in weight, right? Or you should be, you could do more reps than that. But I think having that mindset of just trying to do one more than you did last time, or trying to do a little bit more than you did in the past, whether it's with weight or with reps, I think is a good mindset to have.
So I always go into the gym with the mindset of, I need to be 1% better today than I was yesterday. And sometimes, like you said, it's one more rep, or maybe it's just 2 more reps. So if you can squeeze out one more, that pays dividends, because the next time you go to the gym, maybe now all of a sudden that 1 extra turns into 2 or 3 extra. And then maybe the 2 weeks later, 5 extra pounds isn't as heavy as you thought it was, So that's the mentality that you have. And I think that's key for both gaining muscle and losing fat. If you can work out in that mindset, you're a winner right there.
For sure. And, I love what you said about the cardio. Essentially, you kind of keep track of your steps and try to, stay, I guess, avoid being sedentary just by reaching a reasonable amount of steps. And I think that's another area that you've improved on this phase compared to in the past.
Yeah, I bought myself an at-home treadmill that slides under a desk. So when it's a cold or rainy day, it's perfect for the winter, you can do 10,000 steps by watching something on TV in a half hour, or an hour. And if you're not paying attention to what you're doing and you're watching something on TV or listening to the radio or XM, time flies. And before you know it, you're ahead of the game. You've gotten 10,000 steps. And when it's beautiful out like it is now in the summer, I just go out for a nice, easy walk, nothing strenuous. No need to kill yourself in the gym on the treadmill like so many people do. It's all nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dave, as we kind of wrap up here, I'd like to leave off with a question or two, hopefully that can help someone who's listening here. So obviously you've had some good success over the last few years, getting in great shape, losing body fat, building muscle, just improving your fitness as a whole. So based on kind of what you've been doing and what you've learned, what suggestions might you have, or what advice might you have to someone who maybe has similar goals? Maybe they want to improve their fitness, whether they're in their 40s or 50s or 30s or however old they are, and someone who doesn't know exactly what to do.
So I think the first thing is you have to invest in yourself. And by what I mean by that is reach out to the people who know how to help you. Get a personal trainer. It's like putting money in the bank. It's something that is just so valuable, because if you learn from people who have the experience, now you'll have the experience. And that's the number one piece of advice. The other thing that I would say is sometimes you just have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Tracking your food may seem like a task that's annoying or daunting, but once you build that healthy habit, it becomes a habit for life. And again, it pays dividends. And if you don't know what to do in the gym, I would always tell people, look around the gym and look for the people who are in shape. Chances are they'll help you, because one thing I found out, not necessarily through you, but just through trial and error, is talk to people. People love to help other people, especially when they're seen as having the information. So even now, when I go to the gym, a lot of people come up to me because they look at me, and some people even say, "Oh, what are you training for?" I'm like, "I'm not training for anything. I'm just trying to live my life and train for me." And I've learned so much through your program and through trial and error with exercise that now I can help them. And I've had a whole bunch of people come up and say, "How do I lose weight? How do I get to like where you're at?" And I said, "It's all nutrition." I mean, and I'm able to help people, but I would say, number one, invest in a trainer. Number two, invest in a food scale and an app such as MyFitnessPal or some other competitor where you can track your food. And lastly, don't be afraid to ask people for help. I mean, there are plenty of people in the gym who are more than willing to help. And like people like me, if I see somebody doing something wrong, I try to help them out. But first I'll ask. But it's up to us to really get the information that's going to help us succeed. And a trainer is top of the list. I mean, it's well worth it.
Yeah, I love all those, man. It's so true. A lot of people are trying to figure this stuff out on their own. And I sometimes compare it to the medical field, like this is preventative health, what we're doing, right? Like, of course, a nice benefit of it is you're getting in great shape, improving confidence, looking amazing. But really, it's setting you up for a healthier, longer, higher quality of life going forward. And the people who really need to improve their fitness because of health reasons, they're trying to figure it out on their own, right? Imagine the comparison would be if someone was having some symptom, some serious symptom, and they would go to the hospital and not consult the doctors, they would just use the equipment that's there, whatever they have, x-rays, whatever machines they have there, try to use it themselves and figure out on their own what the hell is their diagnosis and what should they do for it. That's essentially what people are doing.
Well, essentially, you're right. People are watching YouTube videos and they're trying to mimic it, but there's more to just mimicry. There's proper form that helps you isolate the muscle and build the muscle the right way. There's proper form that helps you avoid injury, so.
No, but what you were saying about, as well, people are basically asking you for help and reaching out to you for support that's one thing actually that I'm very big on when bringing you guys on board. And I had a couple of new guys join recently, and I was telling them this as well. It's really not just my hope that you guys get in really good shape yourselves and are really happy with how you're looking. But over time, of course, it doesn't happen in a month, but over time, over several years, that you learn why we're doing certain things and you gain knowledge all this stuff you're talking about, that's going to help you for life to the point where if a family member, a friend, a coworker asks you for help, that you actually feel confident enough to give them some direction. So I don't think anyone who's listening to this would be surprised that you could probably help somebody lose weight yourself just by telling them what to do. And if you can teach somebody else how to lose weight or teach somebody else how to improve their fitness, there's no question that you can do it yourself. Like clockwork how to do it for yourself, right? So that's a big part of what we do, obviously.
When you see it work for you, now you're able to take what you've learned and pass it on to somebody else. And hopefully they do the same thing.
Cool, man. Well, that's pretty much everything I wanted to go over with you. I told you it was going to be 15 minutes before we hit record, and it's probably 40 minutes. So I appreciate your time.
No, you're very welcome. And if I can help answer anybody's questions, I'm more than happy to do that.
For sure, man. I appreciate that. And I feel like anytime we get going talking about this stuff, we could probably just talk about it the entire day.
This could be a 2-hour show.
Yeah, we could do this every week and easily make it a couple hours. So I appreciate you sharing all this stuff and sharing what you're doing, your experience, all that. I'm sure we'll hear from you again as you do more phases where you see more results. Any final words on your end, or are you all good?
The last thing I would say, if you're watching this and you're not part of the program, I think it's worth it to reach out and get more information. Either reach out to you, or they can either reach out to us too as clients of yours. But don't be shy. Invest in yourself because it's well worth it.
Yeah. Sounds good, man. I agree with that. I appreciate it. Yeah, if anyone's
Welcome.
watching, you can always reach out to me. You can reach out to Dave. We've got a really supportive group of guys. Many are in New York like us, but all over the world as well, who are super nice, super supportive guys. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you learned something or picked something up that maybe Dave's doing that you can incorporate into your own program. And we'll see you all on the next video.